Me and Cooper are the worst, most sucker MCs in the world. We have bad breath, we smell bad, and everybody that we've dated cheats on us because we're not good partners. We have bad teeth and they're rotting, and we're poor, and we come from a bad family, and there's photos of our girlfriends sucking other guys' dicks.
Okay, we lowered the camera so our dicks are in this episode.
Yeah. If you're trying to fuck us, this is the perfect episode for you motherfuckers to watch.
This is the full body cast.
Yeah.
Y'all ready for the full lethal gun, fully loaded?
Yeah, welcome to Talkin' S. This is the Talkin' Shit podcast.
Fuck.
I sprung this shit on you.
Why
Now we're doing a Talkin' Shit episode.
Why didn't we name our podcast Talkin' S? It's so cool. Dude, the Talkin' S podcast, TSP?
Yeah.
Holy shit. Can we change it? That's pretty good.
No, we're not allowed to change it.
I like that a lot. Man, Talkin' S. That's so cool. That's like two 45-year-old guys from New Jersey who, like, his daughter started a podcast. She's like, I'm going to do one too with my friend. We're funny guys. And
yeah, I'm doing one with my friend Jeremy.
Yeah, talking about being old school. It's the Talkin' S podcast. And it's I really like...
We're busting bees.
Yeah, I really like when guys who, like, aren't comedians, but they, for some reason, get into podcasting or something where they're like, and this is a no censorship area. And it's like, well, you're just two guys in New Jersey. Nobody cares. Like, yeah. The Talkin' S podcast.
Would it be crazy if two guys from New Jersey got canceled?
Just two random guys.
Yeah.
They just like own a construction company.
You're just like, you're not allowed to be on SNL, and they're like, forget about it.
Oh, fuck.
Oh, no.
Oh, fuck.
I love SNL.
I love Saturday Night Live. God damn it. It was my biggest dream to write with Andrew Dismukes. That is all I wanted, is to be in the writer's room with Jake Nordwind if I could just get out of New Jersey and to 30 Rock.
Damn, that'd be crazy if not only were these guys like really into SNL, they were like really into our friends.
Well, yeah, they know the new writers.
They're just like, yeah, Casey Shornima, that's my girl.
Yeah. People that aren't even on the TV show. People that are just in the room.
Just like talented writers in the back.
Yes. He's like, God, they got a lot of young guys. I love Sarah Sherman. Sarah Squirm, always been a huge fan because she fucking goes for it. It's crazy. And that's just the Talkin' S podcast. He's trying to get all the SNL writers on the Talkin' S podcast. Yeah, we reach out to Michael Longfellow on Facebook, but he hasn't posted in 4 years, so I don't know if he still uses that account. Hopefully next week we'll get him.
Dude, I remember the first time I met him at the like worst club in Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
I've only met him twice.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time was in this like terrible fucking club. It was like the guy that runs it was used to be a cop. And I remember the funniest thing is in the green room there's
Cops
just this
Comedy Club.
Yeah, in the green room there was a script just out and it said Cop Comic. It was a pilot script he had wrote.
Oh no, and he left it in the green room?
Yeah.
So a comic would be perusing things and say, oh, I guess I'll read this script.
Yeah. Oh, I guess that's the point. He's like trying to get these headliners here to be like, oh, Cop Comic, that sounds interesting.
Be like, I found this script in the green room that's really good.
Yeah.
It's about cops. You know the thing everybody is hyped on and wants to make TV shows about? You know how much Hollywood wants to make cop TV shows right now? With how awesome the LAPD and everybody else is doing? The cops are doing so good.
Dude, I'm going to take cupcakes to the protests and give them to the police.
Because they deserve it?
Because they love cupcakes.
Yeah.
And they deserve it. They don't think they would? They're trying to eat it, but it keeps getting into their riot mask.
Yeah.
And then they're like shooting a kid, but then they got fucking ice frosting all over their riot mask.
Well, they shoot the cupcake because they can't eat it through their mask, so they think it's attacking them. So they put a handcuff around it and then somehow find the neck of the cupcake. And they just knee down on it, you know? The only thing cops know how to do.
That's cops' mortal enemy is the neck.
Cops training now, it's only 20 minutes long, and it just tells you where to put your knee on a guy's neck.
Yeah.
And they're like, this is still allowed, even though they talk about it on the news. We're still doing it.
That's actually what the police, that's how they train police, is they make them watch the news for a night. Yeah. And then they're like, just do what those guys they're talking about said.
Yeah. If the cops on the news are the best. The best
Those
cops,
those are our famous cops.
you want to be a cop to eventually get on the news for killing.
That's their Netflix.
if you
Is
see a
being
guy,
on the news.
the guy runs a red light, kill him.
The A-list cops are like the guys who get Netflix documentaries about them.
And some guys have to start off on YouTube.
Yeah.
They get a YouTube doc, that gets enough views, and Netflix goes, oh, this is a story.
Yeah.
And then they get their second special on Netflix. The Derek Chauvin special, they call it. Yeah. That's not the kind of stuff we do over here. Yeah, I mean, let's talk some S.
It kind of is. I mean, and biting social satire is kind of our thing.
God, it is biting.
Yeah, it's so people are watching this like, no, they didn't.
Yeah.
But we did, and we will.
I had a thought this morning about how I'm going to try and stop living with regret.
Yeah.
And stop believing in morals. That's actually not a joke. I was thinking about that.
Stop living with morals? I feel like you have to have morals. It's just you don't.
I just deny the existence of morals. The way I'm thinking about it, I'll explain it, is, and a lot of people would say, I think you're still just talking about morals, but I'm more interested in the way of conceptualizing things, because I think those subtle differences are more interesting to me. So when it comes to regret, the other day I was at an open mic, I did a riskiest joke, and it didn't go well, and I was kind of like, I'm not trying to be cool. I kind of got mad.
I was there for that.
Yeah, was that bad?
No.
Yeah, okay. But I was...
I mean, the punchline was pretty brutal.
Yeah. But I was thinking about it, and then I was regretting it, and then I was like, the regret gets me absolutely nothing. Because in my head, I'm like, well, I got to think about the bad things I do and be better. And I was like, no, I just have to think about, accept that I did do those things, and then just say, well, next time I'd probably want to not. But who knows what's going to happen? Everything's moment to moment. And that's why, morals are absolutely fake, because everybody says they have morals, but we all make decisions situation to situation, and those morals rarely actually carry over in any kind of real way. Yeah, mostly morals are just things people... I mean, Louis has a good joke about it. It's just people believe, but they don't act. But morals are just something people tell themselves to feel better. They're not real at all. Nobody lives in a moral life or follows any kind of code.
I don't know if I fully agree with that.
I think we have patterns. I think we want things. I think we have desires for who we want to be. But, I think being aware of that moment to moment.
I guess it's understanding the frequency of where do your morals end? If you're like, I don't cheat, it's like, well, how hot would a woman who's offering to fuck you have to be?
Yeah,
it's kind of like everyone has a price type of thing.
Yeah, that's a big issue with morals, and also I'm a big why does that guy do that even though I would never do that? Like terrible drivers or whatever, and then you kind of pathologize it and add a whole narrative where you're like, other people don't care and I care, and it's like, no, that's just a thing that pisses you off. You're no more moral or holier or whatever than that person. You also don't know how often that person acts that way.
Yeah.
Maybe that was a lapse in judgment, you know what I mean? But I don't know. I'm really big into having principles and thoughts about what life should be, and for the most part, that just kind of runs you into the ground. And I think I'll never let go of those principles, but if I stop the act of trying to hold on to them, then they'll still be there, but they just won't have any sort of negative effect on my conception of the world.
Yeah, it is
just
weird.
Sort of holding nothing as true or really constant. You know what I mean?
It is weird how much because there's comics that are genuinely bad people, and you've heard of the bad things that they've done, you know? And you don't fuck with them, and it's but you're also kind of thinking but would I fuck with them if they were offering me something?
Of course, and a lot of times it's probably yes.
Yeah.
For most people, because you think okay, well, they're a terrible person, but all I'm doing is opening this show, and I get a little money, and I'm
the defense you can make in your head, I guess, which is how because some people, they don't even want to do mics with some people,
right?
But it's you work with sex offenders at every job.
Yeah, and also those people that don't want to do mics, it's that's just where your comfortability level ends. I don't really think it really has to do with your morals or your principles. I think your comfortability is actually more important, and comfortability is a smaller thing than the idea of morals, but it's way more impactful.
And it's also crazy how everybody loves to have morals, but then they actually see somebody that has some sort of principle, and they're like, that person's crazy.
Yeah, oftentimes they just think they're crazy or judgmental or whatever, and it's
and a lot of times they are.
And a lot of times they are because they're holding on to a
mean-
thing that's completely conceptual and not like real. Because
Yeah.
if you're going to live like sort of like some sort of existential life where you're realizing that every decision you make grows the person you are, then you have to be completely present for every single situation. And you can't rely on any kind of, prior knowledge or a god or anything like that. And it's like, if you have a god or if you have morals, it's the same thing where it's like, you're acting like you're walking into every situation as this person with this built-up honor code, but it's
Yeah.
like you're just the sum of your experiences and your trauma and your mental issues or whatever, and you're making decisions every time, and they rarely really have to do with morals. Even when they align with what you think your morals are,
Yeah.
you're doing what you want to do at all times.
Yeah.
So just be cognizant of that is what you're doing, and then also keep in mind of maybe try and do your best. But once again, it's like, to call that a moral, I think, is pretty thick. I think we just hold on to morals because we want to believe there's something better than what we're seeing, and there's not.
Well, also
this
another
is
thing
it.
with morals is like you also don't fully get to get to choose what your drives are, like what you want. So it's like we know people that like are super horny and fuck all the time, but like if they were attracted to kids, like could you really be like, well, this person that can't control his sexual whims wouldn't just fuck kids all the time?
Yeah, you have that new joke about that. That's
Yeah.
very funny. Yeah, well, that's the thing with morals is oftentimes they're derived from your most base drives and wants.
Yeah.
And then you try and rationalize them into like a societally acceptable honor code of thinking.
Yeah.
But it's like that's why you have all these like alpha men who are like a man should make a bunch of money and he should have sex with a lot of women because men need to conquer. And it's like you're just a guy that wants money and pussy.
Yeah.
But you're ascribing this value of you being descendant of kings.
Yeah.
And something about the loss of masculinity in Western culture, all of which is just something you made up completely.
Yeah.
There's no loss of anything. Things just change, and none of it was real to begin with. Like complaining about a loss of masculinity or a loss of something like that is just like, no, it's a change in their perspective of what masculinity means.
Yeah.
Or whether or not it's really even essential for a society, which I think we're finding out more and more is not. Like any kind of thing like that, you know what I mean?
I was thinking the other day about like guys that get too much pussy are bad people, but then guys that get no pussy turn into bad people.
Definitely. And
I was thinking like women need to like start voting with their pussy, kind of.
How so?
Like, because it feels like, I mean, when you fuck somebody, you're kind of signing off on them a little bit.
Yeah.
You're kind of rewarding them for being who they are.
Yes.
So you kind of, I think, there needs to be more moderation. You know what I mean?
You think women shouldn't fuck bad guys because it affirms their badness?
Yes.
I think those bad guys, if they weren't getting fucked, would just affirm their badness through not getting fucked.
Well, yeah,
And
that's what I'm saying.
But
You
that's
have to find some sort of moderation.
But I don't think anything women do is going to change men's conception. Because it's just like, if some guy is going to be mad at women, whether or not he's fucking them, he's going to be mad at them either way. Because he's either going to go, they're all easy,
Yeah.
they have no morals, that's why I fuck all of them. Or he's not going to fuck them, and he's going to go, they only fuck bad guys.
There's kind of a horseshoe with that of like a guy who fucks a lot and a guy who doesn't fuck, of like they both hate women.
Yes. And I think they would either way.
You think so?
They're the same guy, just living different situations. But it's like, they're going to find...
There's the same guy except one of them is fat and one of them isn't.
You know, they're going to find a way to be bad people anyway. Because also what you're saying about women fucking selectively, they obviously have since the dawn of time. It's just, you know, we're all just people, and sometimes you think a guy's nice and then he's not.
Yeah.
And that's oftentimes women's complaint is, I thought this guy was nice, and then we started having sex and he got really rough. Or like we were dating for a few months and then he started being really
Well,
inconsiderate.
that's the thing you start to learn.
So when you're saying like women should moderate who they're fucking to not affirm bad men, it's like, well, you don't really know who people are because bad men lie. And,
yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
that's the thing with fucking is it's like, you're like,
I'm just saying it's men's job, really.
like when you talk to men that fuck a lot, you start to realize, oh, you like lie. You're like a liar.
Yeah, there's a whole
There's-
game that people are playing that they think is the only game in town, kind of.
Yeah.
And, you know, what I've noticed with sex is that if you don't play that game, you'll still fuck.
Yeah.
Like, just people want to fuck. Women are sexual creatures. Men are sexual creatures. If you act generally normal, if you just hang out, you'll fuck people.
It's pretty easy.
Yeah, and it's like not like, you might not fuck every fucking day, but like every few months a new normal woman or man might come into your life and then you'll be like, "Oh, this person wants to fuck."
Yeah.
And then you're like, "Oh, okay, cool. I didn't really do anything for this to happen." You know what I mean? Which seems I think that's what makes life fun, cuz then you're fucking and you're like, "Man, this girl's hot. It's cool this just happened." It seems worse to be like, haha, I've duped her.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Or like could you imagine fucking a girl and you're like, I can't believe she thinks I'm a lawyer right now. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy. Like, you're just living a lie. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, you're basically like a rapist.
And then also those guys will, talk about like, those are the same guys that will talk about like being honorable and being And it's like, well, here we go back to morals. It's like, well, what are they? Because your actions don't align. And so it's like,
masculinity is a very weird thing. Because, like, if you read a lot of the fucking old guys, their idea of masculinity was of moderating and of being ethical. But, like, a lot of these guys that read those guys, all they take away is you gotta fuck, you gotta get money.
Yeah, people have gotten really into the fact that humans are animals. That's like a thing dumb guys really like to glob onto. It's like, oh, well, we're animals. And it's like, no, we're animals with consciousness, and that is a subtle but major difference between all of us. It's the reason we have cities. It's the reason we have everything. And this embrace of animalistic culture of like polyamorous people and being like, well, we're actually all. It's like, no, all you're doing is denying your gift as a human to be able to think critically and make concepts. And this goes against little what I'm talking about morals, because we're talking about making things up in your head. Yeah. But it's like, what we do as humans is we conceptualize a world we don't live in, and then we create it. And then now the new thing is like, no, you're just a dog and you got to fuck as much as possible. It's like, no, there's a balance between realizing that morals are kind of bullshit, but also situation to situation trying to treat people with respect.
Yeah.
Being honest about what you want, like I'm single right now. I don't want to be in a relationship, so I guess I would just be looking for casual sex, but also like you don't have to go about that in an evil way. And it's also like, yeah, I'd like to fuck some people right now, but I also know I have to fix a lot of my mental shit, so I'm not out trying to fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If it comes along, that's nice. I don't know what I'm getting at, but
I mean,
this whole thing about how humans are animals is fucking like, yeah, obviously that's where we start.
Yeah.
But go on from that. Read something.
Yeah.
And, make yourself better. I feel like people, I don't know, don't you have like a drive to like know things and have a lot of information?
Yeah.
Kind of for like almost no reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because like I watch like I've been talking about all these videos I've been watching, and I really enjoy it because it's like it's just very interesting that these things are happening, and I like knowing them, and it gives you a better perspective about the world.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why I want to know those things, because I know that when I bring it up in conversation, it's mostly boring to people.
I feel like it's just a drive to understand. Like, I mean, I think that's at the core of most knowledge.
Yeah, I just like to...
especially history. You just want to kind of understand why people tick.
Yeah, it makes life so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed the one thing I'm most interested in the world is why people do things.
But
usually.
it also I think probably makes your life a little bit worse, because then somebody will fuck you over. Like, if you had any sort of bad childhood and you start reading, like, then you're just like, damn, I was I feel sorry for these people that did horrible things.
You think it's bad to grow empathy through reading about stuff? Or what are you
I think it
at?
makes your life harder and more, I feel like it makes it sadder.
I think the way to avoid that is it's kind of what we were talking about with morals, is you don't build narratives or ascribe values to things. You know what I mean? So I
feel like that's just like kind of an impossible thing to ask.
I think it is impossible, but I think that's something we're talking about with humans and our ability to critical think, is you kind of play an active role in that.
It just feels kind of like you're, like the end goal of what you're saying is some sort of like stoic sort of philosophy that's like, I just don't think is like,
it's still
a thing that is easily attainable, or even like, is it even worth attaining?
I guess what I'd say, as a guy that's like really depressed and can build a lot of terrible narratives and stuff, is like, I want to acquire knowledge about like current and past conflicts or whatever, not to have a defined way of life and thinking. I think a lot of guys want that, where they're like maybe trying to affirm some belief, whether it's like a racist or the nationalist belief or something like that, or something not as bad as that. They like want to affirm that belief. I just want to know stuff, so when I see other stuff, I'm like, okay, that makes a little more sense to me. Yeah. And then try and stop there.
It
and
is
just
interesting.
use it as a better understanding of the world, but without ascribing a narrative. Because when you ascribe a narrative to all of history in the world, you're usually wrong, and you're just on one side of a spectrum, and you're kind of wasting your time.
When I read a lot about war, sometimes I'll go do my regular stuff. Like I'll go to the grocery store or an open mic, just be like, "What the fuck am I doing?" There's a guy across the street sees that's cutting a pregnant woman's belly open and eating the fetus. Like, and that's just war.
Yeah, and I think that lets you.
This is so stupid.
I think that lets you be more present and interested and laugh at life and how unfair and stupid everything is.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like you go to an open mic and you know somebody's eating a baby.
Yeah.
That's their baby for food.
Yeah.
Because a Western-backed major power keeps bombing them.
Yeah.
But it's like then you just go like, well.
Is that what we're gonna do on the podcast? We're gonna hint at Israel and then just.
You're like, I guess that's how Yeah, you're just like, wow. I guess that's how fucked up the
This
world
is my dog whistle sign.
Because also, like, you're feeling bad about that is like, it's almost what we're talking about with morals, where it's like, okay, you feel bad about that, but you're not going to do anything anyway.
Yeah.
So it's like you might as well just take what you learned as just more information, and then think about, it can inform some of what you do. But if you realize, like, well, I'm still an American doing stand-up, and I'm able to do stand-up, and I'm going to do it for as long as I can. These are the facts.
Yeah.
Let's not, write some story about how you're complicit in what, it's like. Because that's a big thing now is, like, trying to extrapolate meaning out of, like, well, then you're a part of this, and it's like everybody's kind of a part of all sides at all times. It's like maybe you hang out with your friends from back home and they're saying wild stuff about Joe Biden, but then you go to the ballot box and you vote for Joe, and then you talk to your wife and you say completely different things, and it's like you're three different people. And it's like, so this whole, like, I'm this, the world is this, or I shouldn't be doing comedy because there's fucking people dying over there. It's just sort of like...
It's not even I shouldn't be doing comedy.
But
it's just my life is ridiculous.
Yes. But I think that's fine. You should know that.
Yeah.
And that fact alone is the most important thing. Is just knowing that, and you don't have to extrapolate any values or narrative out of it. Just know that part.
Yeah.
And then that's the most important thing. Is my life is ridiculous. People like to go past that part to build a personality.
Yeah.
But you really don't need to. You're just doing everything for show after that. Once you realize the thing, internalize it, keep going doing whatever you're doing, but you don't have to go out and be like, and because of that, I'm going to fucking act like this.
Yeah.
Now, then again, it's not bad for a comedy career, to be the guy that's on some warpath for something. But, because people love that. You know what I mean? Like, people love that shit of just fucking being like, oh, like those fucking gay-ass comics, especially the roast comics, they always say shit like, we do it because we love each other, and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, you do it because you like being on stage and getting laughs, you fuck.
Yeah.
Are you telling me that you came on here in front of the Kia Forum because you love your friends?
Yeah.
That's why you're here, because you love... Go fuck yourself, you fucking fraud. You're a dumbass. You're an idiot. You're selling an idea. Because for some reason, the idea of just making people laugh is not enough for you or your fans.
Yeah.
Because you're so obsessed with some grand idea of what you're doing. There's no grand ideas. Nobody's doing anything important. It's all just, it's nothing. So it's like, just do the thing. That's why I like this podcast. If I had to defend it, it's very hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we just talk about stupid shit.
Yeah.
But as long as we don't ascribe some sort of belief in what we're doing as anything more than what we want to do, then I'd like to think that we're safe. But now, so many...
Which is crazy. I consider this just like a big... we're on the front lines of Israel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to consider this podcast this podcast might radicalize a lot of people.
I do. We should be one of those podcasts that thinks what we're doing is important.
What if we radicalize people, but then they're like, I'm coming out of the closet. I want to eat poop. I want to eat poop. I want to pick my nose and rub it on the backs of people while they're walking.
Yeah, there's like people like...
There's like, we radical grossed them. We radicalize people into being grosser.
Yeah, it's like a totally normal country where like there's like not a lot of like political strife at the moment, just somewhere like fucking Iceland or something. And then there's just people marching through the street just being like, we want to eat frozen poop shavings.
Yeah.
This is all we want. That would be good.
Down with toilet paper.
We need a big movement based off eating poop. Because right now all the movements are involved with, loss of life and shit like that. And, And sadly, people have gone numb to it. Mm-hmm. People would care more about a movement for poop.
Yeah.
They've seen death enough that actually the worst thing is no longer... The worst thing is normal. So we have to go lower, actually.
Yeah, we got to get...
We have to go less
We got to
worse.
go get disgusting.
We gotta get disgusting.
Yeah.
And that's why we're starting the Get Disgusting campaign.
Yeah. We're partnering up with Michelle Obama to get kids disgusting.
Yep. Michelle Obama is going to.
You know, California has the third least disgusting children in the nation.
Which is ridiculous. And
Yeah.
that's why Michelle Obama is putting bugs in the vending machines at school for kids to eat. You can now buy a bag of bugs.
Yeah. You have pick your nose time. We got rid of reading hour. It's pick your nose.
What you can do is you can buy a bag full of live flies.
Yeah.
About 200, and you can take them into your classroom and let them go so all the kids can eat them like frogs off their desk.
Yeah.
And that's what people want. That's what we talked about.
And all the kids, we have the Leave No Child Behind law. If your kid fails at eating earwax class, then like all the kids get held back.
Mm-hmm. I also want to say I talked about morals and values and try to sound like an intellectual for about 20 minutes. And if you didn't like that and you think I'm a douchebag just putting on, fuck you. I'm in full support of everything I have to say right now. I'm off my meds.
Oh, are you?
I have been for like a year.
Oh. If I get off my meds, I'm crazy. I act insane.
I've been acting insane lately, but it's been like a long time after being off the meds, like way more than when it actually wears off. So this is just something else.
Yeah. I
think I got to go camping.
Yeah, I've wondered. I've been acting kind of weird recently also.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take a solo camping trip or do something alone for a few days and almost die or something.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea.
I saw a
guy I saw a guy the other day shitting into a trash can.
Yeah.
Yesterday actually. But he didn't pull his pants all the way down and he was shitting in the trash can and I was like kind of crazy like that guy has like dignity, you know? And it's like crazy that a guy with dignity is still being forced to shit on the street. Like a guy with even some semblance of dignity.
He has dignity because he's doing it into the trash can.
Yeah, well, he's doing it in front of the trash can. He didn't pull his pants all the way down.
Keep talking.
He just... It's just like... it's just crazy to think about that there's homeless people out here who so badly just want to feel like they aren't, like... embarrassing scum, even though the world tries to tell them that, and it's like they have no other options to wear to shit. That's it's like, and people are still looking at that guy like that guy's fucked up, and it's like, no, he's like trying so hard.
And that's what we're talking about, is people seeing him and ascribing values to his life, and the idea that all of it's a choice, or all this like misunderstanding of like, oh, well,
there's this dumb bitch on Twitter.
You're independent, It's like, what?
There's this dumb bitch on Twitter trying to talk shit about, like, there's a video of a homeless person freaking out, and then, like, there's a woman, and she was talking about, like, she was next to him, he was freaking out, and the woman was like, I wasn't panicked because it's like, I understand that the guy, like, he doesn't want to be doing this, and then the woman on Twitter was like, people that do that choose to do that, and it's like, shut up. You fucking idiot.
That's the biggest thing now, is people have this conception of the world of like, we are all independent with our own power, and then everybody who's not a millionaire is doing it by choice and wants to. And it's like, well, if you don't have an ID, you can't get anything ever. There's tons of people living in the Vegas tunnels that are trying to get IDs, and they've been like in the tunnel for 2 years trying
to crazy. The Vegas tunnel thing is fucking crazy. They like drown like all the time.
Yeah, it's like, I think
like 200 of them drowned like a couple years ago. Great insanity.
I remember I watched that Channel 5 documentary, they asked about the floods, and they were like, usually people can get out, but a couple people will forget. Mm-hmm. So it's like they'll maybe lose one every 3 times there's a flood. It's not too crazy, but it's insane.
Yeah.
I'm saying that's what's fucked up, saying it's not crazy. One person dying is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing, is like, you walk around with all these values and thoughts about life, and then sometimes it just ends up making you look at a homeless guy and calling him a piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's like if you weren't holding so on to these fake values and morals, you'd be able to have situational awareness and be able to look at that homeless guy and be like, well,
it's like, what is he gonna
there's
do?
probably a lot going on here.
Like
half the people in America want to look at a homeless guy and be like, how am I right about this?
Well, it's people like love to talk shit about the homeless people shitting in the street, and it's like, where do they shit?
Where do they shit?
Are they supposed to walk around full of shit?
Well, that's the biggest thing. I mean, that's like they did a open air.
I know people with homes that shit their pants periodically.
Yes, they did an open air shoot up area in San Francisco for people to get clean syringes and shoot up safely, and then the whole town. Well, it had a wall so you couldn't see, but it was outside, and the whole town was like, "This is disgusting. How can we ever support this?" And they all vetoed to shut it down. And then now all those people are in the same exact area, just shooting up with dirty needles in front of people's kids.
Yeah,
and they're like, "This is horrible." And it's like, well, we started to fix it. You just didn't like the answer because sorry, we didn't cure everybody of fentanyl addictions. In one day. And it's like,
do you think we talk about the homeless once an episode?
I mean, probably. We're a folk podcast.
Yeah,
it's pretty important for us to bring the boys up and show support for them and their struggles.
I've always been like obsessed with the plight of the homeless. Somebody commented on that. Like my friend DeHerm came up to me one time and he's just like, "You really care about the homeless."
Yeah, I mean, I think you
because I just talk about it all the time. Have I talked about Shine on the podcast before?
He's the guy that he would come into your job to get free coffee.
Yeah.
He would like say,
I've known that guy since I was like a child.
Yeah. I mean, I think you think about homeless people because you actually talk to them and you realize they're people, which a lot of people don't do. And when they talk to
I don't talk to homeless people out here. Like,
yeah, but just
used to, like, it's weird. In smaller cities, you have your guys.
Yeah,
in LA,
totally.
there's so many that you're like, I don't have relationships with these people.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's why in bigger cities people hate the homeless more because they have less of a relationship with them.
Yeah.
You coming from a smaller place, having a relationship with a homeless guy, you realize the truly terrifying thing, which is that they're just as much of a person as anybody else. And then you're like, wait, it's horrible for them to be out here.
Yeah.
Because everybody else views them as like, well, those are the outside guys.
Yeah.
They're like dogs where they don't get cold outside. They don't mind it. They can be out there.
I mean,
we have this idea that homeless people are almost like Navy fucking SEAls where it's like, no, they're fine out there. It's like, no, they hate it just as much as you would.
Yeah.
But they've done it for 4 years now to where they can't complain every day.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they do and they lose their minds or they start doing drugs. And it's like, yeah, I think, actually realizing that they're people is like really kind of impossible for people to conceptualize because they also have to realize that their own society, the people they voted for and pay taxes to, did that to people. Mm-hmm. They have to accept that. And I think for a lot of people, they don't want to. They want to believe they live in a good country, and you can't have homeless people and live in a good country at the same time. So you just say, well, it's the homeless people's fault, not the country's fault.
Do you have family members that are any like family of yours that have been homeless?
No, the closest I have is my non-blood uncle had a nephew who I think is currently homeless, but he's not. He's not blood. He wasn't very close to us, but and he's a classic example of like his mom told him that his dad died and put him in an orphanage, even though he like totally could have lived with her, and she just didn't allow him to live with him. And then he fucking got into jail at one point. I think he might have sexually assaulted a minor. So then it's like these broken people do terrible things, and then now it's like listed as a terrible person.
Yeah. My cousin was homeless in the Appalachian Mountains, which is a terrible place to be homeless.
There's not a lot of people there. Was he
no.
like living in the woods? Or
he was
like
living
in a town in the Appalachian Mountains.
It was a town. It was Crossville.
I feel like if you're living in a town homeless in the Appalachian Mountains, like you should just go into the woods.
Yeah, he actually, because I used to spend like a couple weeks in the summer there.
Homeless every summer. You spend a couple weeks homeless.
But there was like a woods. His mom like makes like moonshine in her like she has like a bar that she built in like a barn.
Why can't he live with her?
Because he was just they were constantly getting into fights.
Okay, yeah, you can't do that in a small town.
Absolutely
you really got to
not.
keep all your relationships up. If you lose one, you could lose a third of your support system.
Yeah. It is crazy. I mean, to like love somebody and then they end up homeless.
Yeah.
Like,
It's how you realize how real those problems are. I mean, it's the same. It's a much worse version of like a family drug addiction is, because it's like I would see stuff on TV about people doing drugs. I'm like, wow, that's so terrible. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, my brother's doing that? You know what I mean? You're like, oh, shit. And then the homeless is just an extension of that, where I think by the time you have a family member who's homeless, you're like, I would love to help them, but I can't.
Yeah.
Because you've tried before. Like, many homeless people either have a family who tried to help them and was unable to, or they have zero family. But, that's also crazy. You see a homeless person, and this will pop into my head a lot, as I see a homeless person, and I'm like, I wonder if they have any living family members who are wondering where they are. A lot of times they have children. You think about that. Like, you see like a 50-year-old homeless guy, you're like, there's probably a woman out there who's like, my dad is homeless.
Yeah.
He's homeless in L.A. He started doing drugs when I was 8, and then we lost the house, and my mom took us, and then he was kind of bopping around, and then eventually it just slowly sinks off. And I think when your family member is homeless, it's not like one day you get a text and it's like, he's homeless. It's just sort of like, you're like, I haven't heard from him in a while. Last I heard he was staying here, but I know he is so I just assume he's, like, there are many people, most homeless people are kind of lost.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? There's like somebody out there in another state.
They're like playing hide and seek.
Yeah.
But with their family.
They're playing hide and seek, and they really got to go home.
And they've really, like, they're really good at it, but like,
But you got to put down the game at some point.
Yeah. It is crazy, like, how bad mental health is in Tennessee.
Mental health is so bad everywhere.
Yeah, but like in the fucking South, I mean, so much, like, so many fake diagnoses. Like, those motherfuckers don't know how to do shit. It's like they still haven't gotten Freud yet. It's like they're still at the pre-Freud stage of psychology.
Honestly, I think a lot of the people, the way a lot of people are thought of today is in a very kind of pre-Freud way. Like, I think if you ask most people how to deal with like crazy people, they'd be like, well, if a woman's crazy, she has to come, and if a man is crazy, you have to electrocute him. Like, I think most people would still kind of say that.
You have to, like, drill a hole in their head and, like, to hit their pineal gland.
Yeah, because I think, like, the last 200 years of knowledge or thought, whether it's in psychology or science, have gone really theoretical and away from things people can see. Yeah. And that's why there was, like, how there was, like, the big rebirth of, I think it's called, like, realism. Like, when the scientific age and, like, the Renaissance or whatever, like, when the scientific enlightenment happened, there was a huge reaction of guys going, oh, no, I want to get back to realism. And that's where, like, Flat Earth popped up, because it got into what people could see instead of what they couldn't see, because there's a reaction against not being able to understand science anymore. Yeah. And I think that's happened where it's like Freud talking about the subconscious is now out of people's conception, really. Like, we can't really conceive of a subconscious. Like, that's kind of the nature of it. And then also you talk about, like, quantum physics, where now it's at a level that, like, most really smart people can't even understand it. And our actual knowledge and thought has gone past, like, an observable level. So most people, I think, have gotten dumber. Because the current work we're doing is past, like, alchemy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't just look at it anymore. And I think most people have a reaction to that and are very angry and have because it's almost a similar issue with, like, trans people, where they're like, I can't conceptualize of that. And it's like, well, not everything that's real and happening requires your complete understanding of it. Yeah. Because in front of you is a person who is trans and is saying
they do kind of understand it, because, I mean, like, how you become trans is you go to grooming class in school and they turn you trans.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Not a lot of people know that. Michelle Obama did that.
Yeah, it's part of the Get Disgusting.
It's part of the Get Disgusting. Okay. All right. Come on.
Are we going to have to cut that out of the podcast?
No, they know.
I feel like it's very obvious that we're kidding.
It's very obvious. But yeah, I mean, that's the problem is people have this thing, and this is talked about a lot today, where people go, I'm a reasonable guy. Yeah. I just need to understand it. And I think the fallacy with that way of thinking is you're putting a lot of credit into your ability to understand things, where it's like, maybe you don't understand gender and sex science, but I do know that there's a person in front of me telling me the reality they live in and the way they feel, and that is the most real you can. So it's like,
the way
with you.
I don't know. I've always felt like it's like, what is my right to tell somebody how they feel?
Yes, and it's the same as, like, what is your right to say that quantum physics doesn't exist? It's like, where's your knowledge coming from? What do you really know? You just know what you know. Yeah. You had a mom and that was a woman. You had a dad, and that was a man, and that's what made sense to you. And then you went out into the world and you saw something different, and people are so stupid that instead of accepting that difference, they're like, well, no, I'm going to go back to what daddy told me. And it's like, that's not why you're alive. You're alive to expand your mind.
I was just thinking about this, about like, so we know like a bunch of people that moved here from like the South and like the Midwest and all that sort of shit. And they have like, they're ultra liberal, like anti-guns, anti-all this. And like, they have like a hatred for this sort of like redneck.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you think that it's like more of a hatred of like their family?
Of course.
Like, that's how it kind of feels to me.
Everybody's biggest thoughts about the world are just extrapolated from like small family experiences. It's
yeah.
like, it's very funny how it's like,
and that goes back to like the homeless thing of like, is it like my Uncle Joey could have been that guy?
yeah. I mean, you think about like what makes a person. Like you talk about, you know, the guy that shot Franz Ferdinand, Gavrilo Princip. It's like, okay,
Shout out.
So he didn't like Franz Ferdinand, but also for him to be the kind of guy that would go as far to buy a gun and shoot him, there's a lot of other stuff that happened to him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, Hitler had all those thoughts, but getting beaten up by his dad, feeling no love, having an anger against the world probably drove him to push it to the extent he did. You know?
Yeah.
So it's like there's a million different reasons that people do things, and oftentimes it comes from like a childhood trauma or something unresolved within the self. So that's what we're back to morals again. It's this whole belief about like, oh, this is my thoughts about the world. It's like, stop acting like you came up with those thoughts without any of the things that happened to you.
Yeah.
If all of your thoughts have to be critiqued in the way of, well, who am I? Where's this coming from?
Yeah.
And usually it's from a very petty, unresolved mental issue that you have with your dad or something. Most people don't care about anything. You don't care about homelessness. You just had a dad that called you a lazy fuck.
Yeah.
And so when you see homeless people, you hate them now. And you have the gall to say that you think that because of something you read. You don't.
Yeah.
You just affirmed a bias you already had to make your dad happy because you're afraid of him and you hate homeless people.
I also think a big thing of like, of a lot of hating homeless people is it's like, they're kind of like the only people that you see a lot of times, especially in Los Angeles, like driving around. They're like, it's like homeless people and people in like crazy poverty. And I feel like the human brain can't really process that many people, so it kind of turns into blind hatred where they can kind of just turn this person into an object.
Yeah, you put them in a group.
Yeah.
And then you say what you want about that group, like they're all pieces of shit. And then you
Yeah.
see them, and then instead of having to see a homeless person and think of them as an individual and actually feel bad about it, you go, oh, well, that's just part of that group, and they're all pieces of shit, and now I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about it. You're just making your life easier.
Yeah.
That's all you're doing. And that's also the funny thing with the morals and the values and your thoughts about the world is like all you're doing is just trying to make your experience easier. You are not trying to change the world or change people's thought or make the world any better. You're trying to get through it as much as anybody else.
Yeah.
Some people are very honest about that, a little too annoying about it, where they're like, we're all trying to get through. But it's like the guys saying that talk about mental health too much are doing the same thing as the fucking alpha guys. It's like you're just both trying to maintain. And then you're using all this to get through it. But it's all just fickle. And that's why you should just, if you're going to have any kind of principle or moral, it's like, really don't get too up in arms about anything. Don't believe that you have a system to ascribe to. Because that's the issue with all this transphobia is they're like, well, I just can't. And it's like, well, you're showing me is a weakness of mine.
Yeah.
What you're showing me is your inability to conceptualize of another perception of the world than the one you live in, which is like the greatest example of being a weak, pathetic person. You know what I mean? Like transphobes, homophobes, racists, misogynists, anybody that puts a group of people into a box and subjugates them, outlaw-phobic, all that is a weakness of mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's why, like, when people have ever been homophobic to me, it's like, it will piss me off, and when I really think about it, I don't feel bad because I'm like, well, they just showed me that they're a bitch.
Yeah.
That's all they showed me. You know what I mean? And that's what, like, people don't realize, how strong, like, a trans person is because they're experiencing all this transphobia the entire time, and instead of taking it personally and being like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Well, I mean, of course, everybody struggles with that. Trans people, highest rate of suicide.
Yeah.
But in like what they also know is this is this person's problem. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing anything to them. You know what I mean? They're talking about how I'm trying to hurt their kids. I live 4 states away.
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing of this whole homophobia.
I live in California, the state with the most kids. Why would I care about your kids?
And there's something that I think homophobes and straight people notice is that people in the queer community will sometimes have an air of, I'm smarter than you.
Yeah.
I know a little more. And the reason that is because it's from a very real place, which I felt with the first time I fucked a dude. It not only made me realize that concepts of masculinity and homosexuality and stuff were all horseshit. It just taught me that everything's horseshit. Is that I was like, oh, I just fucked a dude and people want to kill me for that.
Yeah.
Like, this is all bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, the government, like, when you have gay sex, you do have this weird, there's no words for it, but you just have this realization of like, oh, everybody's just putting on. And it's just all bullshit. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's so funny because a transphobe going up to a trans person and being like, you're disgusting, is you're just telling that transphobe, you're telling that trans person, it's like, I hate my life.
Yeah.
I have no concept of who I am. I go only by fake values and morals and things that my dad told me to act.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, you look at a trans person and it's like, trans people are a wonderful example of like, self-expression to the utmost extent because that's the point of us being here.
Yeah.
You know, if you feel something and it's true to you, you should act that out in the world because that's the life you should live. That's who you are.
Have you ever met like a racist person who considers themselves like an intellectual? Have you ever like talked to a person like that?
I mean, I've seen a ton of them online. Thinking about actually speaking to them?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I was thinking about how,
I don't know if I've really met like a Jordan Peterson type or whatever.
Well, those guys are like, it would be so hard to argue with them because they know so much more about why racism is good than me knowing why racism is bad.
Well,
but I'm still right.
Well, it's not why racism is good. It's because they think correlation is causation.
Yeah.
So they're just like, you know, this A group of people don't deserve rights, and you're like, yeah, they do, and then they bring up a statistic where they're like, well, 37% of them commit crimes, and you're like, okay, well, that statistic is stupid because people who are poor and disenfranchised commit crimes, and our own country has disenfranchised these people, so they're going to commit crimes to live. So you throwing out a crime statistic and acting like that's just from the way they are, is and that's what most of those things are. Is they're just like, well, these are the facts, and you're like. Not every statistic is as clean as a simple number because a statistic would imply that everybody's doing things while having the most opportunity afforded to them in the best mental state with the best childhood possible. And it's like, no.
I'm just saying if I met like a Holocaust denier, there would be a point where I'd have to be like, let's just agree to disagree. Because I don't know enough about like why it's wrong. I just kind of know that it is.
Yeah, I just don't even argue with those people.
But if like somebody was trying to argue with me about it, I'd kind of just have to, because I'm not like, I don't know enough. Yeah. And those guys spend their whole lives learning about that shit.
No, I mean, a lot of people would call this dumb, but when I argue with somebody with such an insanely different opinion, such as the Holocaust is fake, and a lot of people say this is closed-minded, I just go, if you're able to have that opinion, I'm not able to stop it in this conversation. So all I'm going to do is fight with you about something that I in my heart know is right. Yeah. And also, you being convinced of that, I think it's bad. But also,
I think a lot of guys, they think just the fact that they could beat you in a debate means they're right.
Yeah, people don't realize how most of debate is just based off aesthetics and confidence.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with... I mean, that's why Hillary sucks at debating, is because she thought that you could just say things that were true about your opponent and that people would actually care about them. And it's like, nothing you're saying about your opponent will have any weight unless you are convincing their side aesthetically that you're better. And that's what Trump was just really good at, is just... I mean, for a lot of people, no. Like, for, I guess, people like me, we were like, well, this is obviously a con man. But a lot of people saw that and did not think that. But that's why he won debate. I mean, when I did speech and debate in high school, it was like I would just yell over people and just say vague statements, and I would win debate. I mean, I convinced a class of children that Christopher Columbus was good. And it's just because I was like, well, he opened up the biggest trading company in the entire world. And I just didn't talk about, and then the other side was like, they were trading slaves. And I was like, business is business, and it's like, and I convinced a group of kids.
You kept making the cha-ching noise when they would bring up slaves?
We won the debate. And I didn't believe a word I was saying. I was just being verbose and confident and talking about a net positive while ignoring obvious atrocities. And I convinced a class of 9th graders that Christopher Columbus was good for America and everything.
And they all left racist, and you were just like suckers.
Suckers.
Yeah.
But I mean, we chose that topic because I knew the other side would think they would win. And I was like, no, we'll just talk in circles and we'll just show a lot of confidence and we'll only talk about the positives and then really just ignore and dismiss the negatives. And they were like, is that going to work? And I was like, this is how people work. And then we won the debate. And that's how presidents are chosen. I mean, it's so funny to act like a debate is pure.
Yeah.
To be like, oh, two guys will just spin their ideas. It's like, no, they have different personalities, and whoever's personality is the most likable is going to win the debate.
I was thinking yesterday of like whether or not it would sell if you like took Mein Kampf and edited it so that it was just like whenever he would say like a grand statement, you would just add like not or don't. So it's
so
it's like
opposite?
it's like reverse Mein Kampf. It would kind of be the most liberal book ever if you just was like don't like let's not be nationalists.
Yeah, it would be a really specifically liberal book. You'd be like, where? This is oddly specific.
Yeah.
Don't subjugate the Jews of Germany. And you're like, huh.
I guess we won't.
It was pretty on the nose. You didn't really seem to include any of the other Jews. That's odd.
Yeah, a lot of people say go back in time and kill baby Hitler. Just go back in time and get like the first draft of Mein Kampf and rewrite it. So it's like, here's a bunch of shit we're not going to do.
And then Hitler would reread it and go, oh, I guess I said this. Oh, shit. Holy shit, I've been doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Damn, I got to do the opposite if I wrote it.
A lot of people don't know is that when Hitler was in the bunker, he actually said, shit, I meant to do the opposite.
Yeah.
I meant to do the exact. I meant for these camps to actually be colleges. This sucks. Oh, man.
One thing people don't know about Hitler is he found out about the concentration camp and said, uh-oh, SpaghettiOs.
Yes. We should write the smartest book ever. Which is what you said. It's just Mein Kampf, but with don't and no before everything. And people read it and go...
Or like psych.
Yeah.
Or like not.
Yeah, this needs to be a pure nation, JK. And people be like, whoa, this book is so smart. God, does this book have hindsight? I do want to just write like a history book that's just like, in 1940s, the Holocaust happened, and it was very bad. Crushed it. Next chapter. The transatlantic slave trade was one of the most horrific abuses of people ever committed on the face of the earth.
And it was not baller at all.
It was not baller. All of the slave owners were buster-ass motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Next.
Yeah.
And then, get into whatever other conflicts you want.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got to have fun.
Just one page, it's like Russia implemented a communist government and it was good. Next.
Yeah, and it worked out.
Yeah, it was pretty badass.
Nobody did anything selfish and totally their own idea that ruined the whole thing.
Yeah.
Don't you ever feel... I don't know how you feel about communism, but when people always talk about communism and they're like, well, communism, all it does is end up genociding a bunch of people. When people say that, don't you think like, yeah, but none of those atrocities are written into communism, so that's obviously just the actions of solo leaders.
Well, it's also like, I feel like if you took how many people have died from capitalism and put it
it's so
as
funny.
It would be like billions of people.
Yeah, people killed people in communism because communism is tough because it requires the agreement of an entire nation, which I think is the one flaw. It's why it can kind of never work, and that's why you need like a social democracy where you have healthcare programs so people still have private enterprise and are able to feel free. I think that's the best. But, communism, I think it's a good idea. It's just like nobody's ever really going to agree on one thing.
Yeah.
And then that's why people
Have you read the Communist Manifesto?
I lived it. No.
Yeah.
I haven't. But
he's kind of just talking about how it's inevitable rather than like actually arguing for it, of like socialism's kind of inevitable, and from socialism we should build communism.
Yeah, because isn't a lot of the Communist Manifesto, or maybe it's another thing I'm thinking of, how he thinks of all time in society as like cyclical, where he's like the rich get rich and then the poor overtake them and then they get, and it doesn't he talk about how it's always a system that
I don't remember. I read it in high school. I don't fully remember. I just remember reading it and being like, this wasn't what I thought it was going to be.
No, I think that's the funniest thing, and that's what we're talking about, narratives and people being ignorant.
There's a lot of people that talk about how history is cyclical. Usually they turn out to be fascists.
Yeah.
Like Herbert Spencer kind of talks about that in The Decline of Western Civilization, I think it's called.
Because they use it to just justify.
Yeah.
It's the same thing as like climate change, where they're like, it's supposed to happen. You're like, not the way it is.
Mm-hmm.
You're just denying the fact, But Yeah, I mean, that's the thing with, like, if you actually read the Communist Manifesto, it's like, I'd imagine kind of what you're saying. It's like, it's actually not that intense.
Yeah.
You know, he's just sort of like, this is kind of what would make sense.
Yeah.
Rich people can't have all the money forever. I don't really know what you guys expect to happen.
Yeah.
And then everybody's just like, this guy's fucking crazy. And
Yeah.
And you're just like...
It's like very level-headed.
Yeah. It seems obvious to me that it's like, well, if you had a communist country and every single person in the nation was really hyped on it and psyched, it would probably work.
Yeah.
But it's just, for the most part, people are pretty pissed off if you, like, the way they did it in Russia of, like, taking people's farms very quickly and kind of, like, having their entire life be flipped upside down. It's like, well, you're going to have a lot of people that don't like that.
Yeah.
And you're also going to be so paranoid about keeping them in line, you're just going to kill all of them, you know? But it's like, it is very funny when people are like, well, that's what communism does. You're like, I think that's what Joseph Stalin did.
Yeah.
I don't think it's communism's, you know, I don't know. I don't know what we were getting at, but...
Yeah, I love all the parts in Karl Marx's books where he's like, you have to starve people in 1920.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, we're going to talk about, like, inventing Photoshop to edit dead people out of pictures and being like, that's what Marx wanted. Like, what are you talking about?
Isn't it crazy? We've had Photoshop for a long time, but they used to just call it doctoring. They would, like, just doctor the photos.
Now lies are considered... I like that term, doctoring. This is
Yeah.
a doctored image.
Yeah, it is
doctored
It is a fun.
Man,
Doctoring should be when a guy puts his finger up your ass to make sure you don't got cancer.
that'd be funny if the Soviets had AI. So they're just, like, making pictures of American presidents sucking their own dick and then showing it to all the Soviet people and be like, this is what's going on over there. This is what they're doing.
What if, like, back when FDR was president, they had no clue he was in a wheelchair, but they edited him into a wheelchair?
Yeah, they had AI when FDR was president, so everybody thought he was 40 feet tall. Not a lot of people know that. That was the perception of him, as being a 40-foot tall stone man made of stone. Yeah, AI is bad. Well, at least the pictures. It's really bad for old people. They have no idea.
Yeah, old people will see AI and be like, wait, SpongeBob fucked Donald Trump.
Yeah. and then they love their narrative, so they're like, I knew it. I knew that. I think that is how people are convinced of deepfakes and stuff, is if it matches up with something they wanted to believe.
Yeah.
Then they're like, oh yeah, for sure. Like, if you made an AI video of LA and you just made all the homeless people on fire, you just told people that homeless people are able to be on fire and live, and they walk around engulfed in flames, and showed them a fake video, they'd be like, I told you.
I think somebody actually told me they walked outside of their building one time and a guy was on fire.
He was doing man on fire?
Yeah.
Was he protesting?
It might have been near your old place, but also might have just been some person that lived in Hollywood.
What if you
someplace.
saw a guy, like, engulfed in a meth fire, but you were such an idiot, you were like, damn, he's protesting Donald Trump. Must be another Trump trial guy. I guess I can't save him. I got to let him do that.
Yeah, I saw a guy dead on fentanyl on the street, and I was like, guy is sick of this Palestine stuff.
Yeah.
He's so sick of Israel.
Yeah, damn, this motherfucker is protesting the hell out of Israel.
There's no way
got
it's
a
not
needle
like an
sticking.
80... Like, I bet if homeless people knew about Israel, like in Palestine, they would be so pro-Palestine, it's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything they'd love about the history of or nation of Israel.
I don't think they like anything.
But then again, you know, they might appeal to it being a home of a people who felt like they needed a home. Maybe they'd kind of get in on that. They'd be like, oh, Israel's a home for people that didn't have it.
Yeah.
But
They hear home. No, they hear home, they get pissed.
yeah, they
That's
would.
what a lot of people, they think.
That's why they hate Israel, because the Israeli claim is that it's a Jewish homeland.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, fuck home. All these dumbasses interested in going home. Man, stay outside.
Yeah. A lot of people think homeless people just like hate doors. They like hate doorknobs and shit.
You know, honestly, if homeless people all gathered up into like one area, which I guess is Skid Row, but what they need to do is like become technically a stateless people, like
Yeah.
the Kurds, you know? And then eventually, if there's like enough homeless people, they could maybe have a sovereign nation.
Homeless people need to annex Skid Row. They
I
need to
mean-
like annex neighborhoods.
I think they're already all there. It's mostly them in Skid Row. So if
But they should start like annexing.
So they should
like,
just say-
random- there's so many homeless people. They could like just like fucking annex so many different parts of LA and just be.
Dude.
It'd just be like, this is a different city.
Dude, you see the news, and it's just like the homeless population has gotten together, and they have taken Beverly Hills.
Yeah. Beverly Hills is now called pus-infected sore hills.
I mean, honestly, it's kind of like what we're talking about with Marx is like, if the homeless population keeps rising, there will be a level, because there's already hundreds of thousands, where if they united in any way,
Yeah.
you would have a force of people to reckon with. And right now, they're just, they're either too fucked up or they're being held down enough so they really have little to no power. But if they got together physically and just marched into Beverly Hills, it's like, are you going to be able to stop the 200,000 homeless people you've allowed to live on the streets? Because as soon as they get mad and come together, they might just come in and kill you. It's like, what else are they going to do?
My roommate Mikey said that he walked. He just got back from New York. He was like, there's a lot of crackheads in Manhattan. But then he also said he didn't feel like unsafe the way he feels sometimes in L.A.
Yeah, L.A. just has a wildness to it.
Yeah.
It just sort of seems like New York there's sort of a story and a character of many people there. Like even homeless guys in New York are like, we're in New York.
Everybody that I know that's like from New York or spend time in there is like if they say it's less depressing.
I think it's easier to have a conception of what New York is. I think most of that is there's 5 boroughs. Mm-hmm. They're all very unique. They're all very separate. And then when you're in each of them, there's city centers to them, and it's very localized, and you can get on a train. Every New York comic that's come out here from the Netflix festival, I've heard them say the exact line of, what is L.A.?
Yeah.
Even John Mulaney has a show about it, of he's trying to understand L.A.
Yeah.
And I think about that a lot with my attitude, too, is sometimes I feel like I'm just really unappealing to people because, like, I think it's sort of an LA thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like you kind of think things that maybe don't match up with a certain attitude you have or something. And it's like I think LA to many people and the people from here are very frustrating to people. Because like with New York, I feel like you kind of know what you're getting. Where like everybody is kind of hard-nosed, A-type, walks fast, no bullshit, keep it going, haha. And then LA, there is this conception of like, oh, everybody's laid back and chill, but you come here and that's not true.
Yeah.
And so you're just sort of like, well, what is this place? And the reason that question is asked is because it's really like 19 different cities clumped into each other that are nothing alike. And it's almost like the Middle East. It's just all these lines that were drawn between like areas of people that maybe you haven't liked.
It is crazy how many different types of areas there. Like even near where I live, like where you used to live. I mean, because we're at the border of like Koreatown, Westlake, Silver Lake, fucking what's the other one?
Well, you live
Hollywood.
Yeah, you live right on the edge of the Rampart district. Which
Rampart.
In the 90s was like the worst place to be a cop.
Yeah,
nobody wanted to go there. But that begins.
Rampart is hilarious.
That begins right after the 101.
Yeah. We're in like
when you go down Virgil as you enter that, but you're right on the edge of it.
Yeah,
and that's why we have a lot of runoff and shit. But now it's funny because I live about maybe 1 mile or so down from where you live, just down the street, but you can tell you enter a different area with different zoning and laws. It's like, there's a bunch of millionaires that live behind these apartments, so like 0 homeless people.
Yeah.
And it's crazy when you notice, you're like, oh, the city's doing this.
It is insane when you go to parts of LA that don't have any homeless people, because it's like, what are we doing? Like, this is like supposed to be, I don't know. Homelessness is so tied to what LA is that it's kind of weird.
Well, no, it's because the simple rule is there is a bracket of rent or mortgage or housing prices that if you pay it, you are also paying the city to get any homeless people in that area out.
Yeah.
And that's why living in these apartments is you profit from rich evilness. Because you don't pay as much, but those millionaires behind me would not allow a homeless guy to be within 6 miles of this place.
I was reading reviews for the worst reviewed hotel or motel in LA, and they were talking about, so it's in Westlake, and it's like pretty close to MacArthur Park, and they're like all the reviews are like it's covered in bed bugs everywhere, disgusting.
Which the mayor eats.
Yeah, the mayor loves it.
It's actually the mayor's office.
Yeah. The mayor's office is just like instead of having a table, he has a bed and it's covered in bed bugs.
Yeah, he live streamed off his phone to KTLA again.
Yeah.
And then just showed up he showed a baby bottle with a line of Prometh in it and was like, "Look at this shit. I'm sipping."
But my favorite part of the reviews was when they were like, "Yeah, a lot of times homeless people would get into the motel and bang on every door screaming to be let in.
Cool. You know that Cecil Hotel?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
like famously haunted, people say, and the girl died and stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, you probably know this, but I watched a video on it. It's very funny.
Yeah.
The reason people think that place is haunted is because it is the last like kind of major hotel that is still technically within the bounds of Skid Row.
Yeah.
I believe it's either across the street or the last street where Skid Row cuts off. But I believe it's still in Skid Row, and that's why when they deemed Skid Row to be what it is, all the areas in that place just got so much worse. And so this hotel was caught in the middle of it because it was built like a really long time ago before they had kind of zoned all these areas.
Yeah.
And so now it's just a place where there's tons of people with drug addictions, mental health problems, and things like that. And then people are like, ooh, it's haunted. And it's like, no, it's just in the area where we put undesirables that the city has allowed to die.
I get so curious about what those areas were like back then. Like,
yeah.
Like, I also am curious because there's that area, downtown Manhattan, I think in Chinatown maybe, that used to be like the most murders of any part of any city in the country.
It's called downtown Manhattan in
Like, I don't remember what
New
it's
York?
called. It's like Chinatown. There was like...
This is New York.
Yeah, New York, back in like the early 20th century. Very early.
My grandma used to live in L.A. proper.
Yeah.
Like, she lived, like, I think, like, down La Brea, maybe near, like, La Brea and, like, Pico or something. And it's when the rail car still existed.
Yeah.
And, you know, it was just a more open city. Wasn't as dirty yet.
Yeah.
But, yeah, what's interesting is a lot of those places that now we've turned into no-go zones and ghost towns, they just didn't exist. They just didn't have no-go zones or whatever. So, like, all the areas that are now considered grimy, like, you know, like south of Pico or Crenshaw or whatever, were just normally thriving places.
Yeah.
Until they were like, well, we're going to redline this and put all of non-white people here and then just eventually tear up those houses to build freeways. Like, I think in the old days, the answer is that white people used to live there.
Yeah.
And then because of changing demographics, they moved out, and then the town started abusing those areas because they weren't full of white people with money.
Do you watch any of those, like, 90s LA movies? Like, because I feel like in the 70s and 80s, the grimy city they would show on movies was New York. And then I feel like in the 90s, it became LA.
Like what?
Like Boys in the Hood, Menace to Society.
Well, yeah, when gangs were big, LA was kind of the top gang city.
It still is, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, like, at least just in the public eye.
Yeah.
Because also, like, you think about, like, NWA and Snoop Dogg and, you know.
I mean, LA, like,
DJ
Compton
Quick.
back in the 90s is like their murder rate was like 93 per 100,000 people, which is insane for a city.
And I think there was something so appealing about it because New York was very movie grimy, where it's like, big buildings, dark streets, alleyways. But then LA was crazy because it's like you have these wide streets, these tan painted apartments. There's a lot of sun. There's palm trees. But people are openly murdering each other. So it starts to feel like really the more Wild West vibe comes into it, where you're like, I think that's what's confusing about LA is it's so nice looking.
Yeah.
In some ways, a lot of people say. But it's, you know what I mean? The weather is so nice that there's this expectation from New York people who are always cold that's like, well, I bet they're all happy. And it's like, well, no, there's actually a way more, like this whole New York mentality that people think exists only in New York of like, gotta get your money, fuck everybody else, be quick. It's like, that's actually more prominent in LA.
Yeah.
That's actually, the evil thing about LA is you don't know it's evil.
Yeah.
You don't know. New York is baby games. New York is for dumb people because it's like obviously bad.
Yeah.
Where LA is like, oh yeah, like some of these areas are nice, some of them are not, but it's all evil. You're caught up in a terrible. There's tons of sex trafficking. There's gangs, there's violence.
I feel like the most perfect encapsulation of LA is the show The Shield. Like that nails the vibe of LA more than anything I've ever seen. That and the comic book Sin City. Those are they just fucking nail it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's like so many people here are just profiting off of fucking other people and getting what they need. And like,
I mean, this might technically, like in terms of how many crimes happen, might be the most crime-ridden city, even if it's not the most per capita.
I feel like it would have to be. You know what I mean?
Because, like, I know that So I remember reading a thing. I get so fascinated with crime statistics that a crime happens in LA every like 20 seconds and a crime happens in New York every 28 seconds.
Yeah, bitches.
Yeah, pussies.
Yeah, because that's the thing is people are confronted with how hard-nosed New York is because it's more crammed.
Yeah.
It's sort of similar looking, so you can kind of have a basis on what the place is, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But in LA, there's like the whole city is kind of visually lying to you. The people
Yeah.
you meet that maybe act very nice are kind of lying to you. So it's like, no, the city's harder because it's all the same fast, you gotta go, gotta get what you need shit as New York, except that is not being told to you.
Yeah.
That is the underlying system that's
Well, there's so
going
many
through
people
here.
that come here from New York and they have like 0 street smarts, and it's insane.
Yeah.
Like they'll be like, "Oh, I can rock through Skid Row," and it's like, you definitely shouldn't.
Yeah, that's a place about LA. Is like some places obviously look bad, but there's
Yeah.
also places in LA where it's like, no, dude, you're in a bad area right now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I think a good example of what LA truly is that Hollywood Boulevard is a horribly drug-ridden, crime-ridden place, and it's where
I
all
actually-
the tourists go.
What's funny about Hollywood Boulevard? It's actually more crime-ridden than even the worst parts of New York, which is pretty insane.
And that's
to think
exactly what we're talking about. Is
Yeah.
they're like, oh, it's so easy, everybody's so chill out there, and it's
Yeah.
like, no, go to our tourist area
Yeah.
and see that it is the most fucked up, depraved place you've ever seen, and that's LA.
Yeah.
That's what it is. The place that we tell tourists to come to outside of the Chinese theater and the Palladium or
Yeah.
whatever is infested with devastation.
I had to. My mom wanted to see Hollywood Boulevard, and I brought her. It was my mom and my nana, and they were walking so slow that I had to call an Uber because I knew for a fact somebody was gonna fuck with them.
Yeah.
Like you can't, you know.
Yeah, no, a lot of LA is like, oh, you don't know where you are right now.
Yeah.
You know, in New York, it's like, oh, we know what Brooklyn, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
they're really into the places, but LA is just sort of amorphous and changing. And
New York also hates LA because it's not exactly the same.
yeah, they
And it's
hate,
like-
they hate that we're not exactly the same.
Yeah.
But you also
It's
have to
like
realize,
you can be a city in like a million different ways.
I also think about, you have to think about the types of people that settled a city and then what grew that city and the character of that city. Because it's like the people that came to America from Britain were some of the most insane, desperate people in Britain.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them stayed in New York. But then the even more crazy, desperate, insane people that wanted even more went west.
Yeah.
Some people got boring and stopped in Idaho. But the people that made it all the way to the end of the country
Yeah.
are the most insane people on earth. Because
Yeah.
LA, California is still the last place on earth.
Yeah.
It's the last place we really, except Antarctica, but you know what I mean. It's in terms of combing the world. LA is the last place that people sprinted to. We are
And it
the
is crazy also because San Francisco is arguably maybe the greatest landmass in the entire world. Possibly. It's definitely up there.
for like looks, or what do you mean?
In
Greatest?
terms of like, yeah, in terms of how it looks.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Yeah, so these are all the people that saw New York and were like, not enough, and fucking kept going. So it's like, we're more wild than everybody because everybody here is either part of that group or descended from that group. And I think that kind of person, that is
My-
in the genes of a lot of people
My
here.
fucking grandfather.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, it's in the
my,
genes.
My great grandfather lived in a trailer park in South LA in like the 70s.
And then he went back to Nashville?
No, he lived there. He died there, I think.
Oh, cool.
But yeah. Anyway, we need to not have a crazy long episode.
Yeah, 115
This episode
is
wasn't
good.
really that funny, so
I think it was great.
yeah, we kind of talk about the stuff we talk about every week, a little bit, but whatever.
No, it's in the same vein, but it was different subject matter, and that's what
That's
people
true.
like.
I mean, the morality thing was interesting. Hopefully.
Yeah, you know, I don't care that I'm 24 talking about morality. You came to this podcast, so if you don't like
I don't
it,
know if you should say your age. I think people will edit all the morality thing and then edit I'm 24 at the very end and then be like, look at this fucking dumbass.
Good.
That they should definitely make an edit of Cooper talking about philosophy and then saying I'm 24.
Yes.
Yeah, any fans of the podcast want to make that edit, send it to us, and we will kill ourselves.
Yep.
Me and Cooper are the worst, most sucker MCs in the world. We have bad breath, we smell bad, and everybody that we've dated cheats on us because we're not good partners. We have bad teeth and they're rotting, and we're poor, and we come from a bad family, and there's photos of our girlfriends sucking other guys' dicks.